It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Jaylen Brown's injury is called a scephalonate torn ligament, okay? A torn scephalonate ligament in his left hand. And what's the first thing that we all do when we hear, we're like, oh, well, let's Google what this is. And first of all, this is the second time we've had to Google this because this is the same injury that Romeo Langford suffered in his right wrist. So it's a ligament that holds two small bones in your wrist together. And the wrist is a very complicated joint. There are a lot of different bones. There are a lot of different ligaments in there. And there's a lot of little things that can go wrong. And it turns out that this scephalonate ligament is a common injury when people fall. And basketball players are falling all the time. And so this type of injury is not uncommon for a basketball player or an athlete bracing your fall. That's going to happen. So Romeo Langford, we know he was out for about 5 months. Then he got COVID, so he's out for another month. But the return from the injury was about 5 months or so from his surgery. Now, Jaylen's going to get surgery later this week. And I don't know if we're going to hear from him beforehand or not. But the timeline for him is I don't know if it's going to be the same or different than Romeo Langford. There's a very key difference in Romeo's injury and Jaylen's injury in that Romeo's was in his right hand, his shooting hand, and Jaylen's is in his left hand, his non-dominant hand. So shout out Max Letterman, who from NBC Sports Boston, who made sure that I wasn't disrespecting his lefty finishes. So it's his non-dominant hand. And his non-shooting hand, okay, non-dominant hand. He shoots with his left plenty. So shout out to you, Max. The difference is, though, with the shooting hand, obviously when you're shooting, you're snapping your wrist a lot. And that's the motion that you're going to have that injury. So by constantly shooting, you're going to have to really work to get back and build that strength back up so you can shoot the ball the way you normally shoot the ball. The left hand, yeah, you're still shooting the ball from time to time, but it's not quite as labor intensive as working back through your shooting hand. There's a comfort level, there's a psychological level there. So it's possible that Jaylen Brown's time frame for return will be much less than, or somewhat less than Romeo Langford. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just working off of things that I've read, things that I've experienced from injuries, things I know from my own. I've never suffered anything like this, but I know that when you're working back from something to your dominant side, it's just going to be a little bit more difficult. So it's possible that there might be a little bit less of a recovery time for the non-dominant hand versus the dominant hand. But look, it boils down to people are different, and it's not really possible to know exactly what this person's timeline is going to be, because it certainly could be longer. It could be shorter than anybody anticipated. But the surgery is going to take a significant amount of time, and I would say almost certainly rules him out for anything, no matter how far the Celtics go this season. Am I going to say 100%? I can't, because I don't know for sure. I want to say 100%, but I don't, unless the Celtics make the NBA Finals and somehow he comes back in July with a big old brace on his left hand. I don't even think that's possible, but I think we're looking at a multi-month absence. So I think his season is completely done. I know some people have suggested this online. I don't think that that's going to be the case. So if we're looking for good news, bad news for Jaylen Brown, the non-dominant hand thing is one part of the good news. The timing is actually, as far as everything goes, let's be real here. This doesn't ruin any real chances that the Celtics have, because any chances the Celtics had of making a deep playoff run was a little bit remote and made even more remote with the recent losses to Miami and Chicago. So things are already starting to kind of swirl around the toilet bowl. This doesn't like devastate what the Celtics are trying to do. It's certainly, if we're looking bad news, it does take away the probability of any sort of miraculous run. It does lower that probability for sure. But it's May. The announcement was on May 10th. At some point between now and I would assume they said later this week. So this is the May 11th show. So the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, somewhere in there. Even if he's out for the 5 months that Romeo was out for, that puts him back somewhere in October, which is training camp. And he'll probably, I would say, be back near or before training camp. And even in a long recovery scenario, let's say there's a complication, let's say there's something that makes it go 6 months, it doesn't eat into much of the regular season. So even if it goes the high end of the anticipated recovery time, that's what, November? That's not the biggest deal in the world. You work them back in December, January, and it'll be fine for the stretch run. So the timing isn't that bad. This is not going to be an injury that I don't think is going to be something that really becomes chronic. Actually, not doing the surgery is something that could make it become a chronic thing, because not doing the surgery can lead to arthritis. So that's especially necessary to get the surgery. But it does, on the bad side, eliminate his offseason workouts. What are those going to be now? And this is really at the heart of why this is such a tough blow for Jaylen Brown, because he's already ascended. Now he was an all-star this year. I mean, what did he average? He ended up with 24.7 points, 6 rebounds, 3.4 assists, career high points by far, career highs in effective field goal percentage, career high in 3-point percentage, career high in overall shooting percentage. Just overall, an amazing season for Jaylen Brown, an all-star season for Jaylen Brown. And you just wonder, man, this guy goes and puts in that work in this offseason. What's he going to add to his game? What's he going to become next season? And losing the offseason is definitely something that hinders him. It takes away from that ability to add to his game. What could he have developed? And this is a crucial time for him, because he's 24. He's going to turn 25. When is his birthday? October. So he's going to turn 25 right around the time that he gets back from the injury. So 25 years old. Obviously, he's got a couple years to go before he enters really his true prime years. So he has a lot of time to still develop, but this could have been just another step that, look, he lost an offseason this past summer. He's losing an offseason now. He still came back, though, with an expanded game. So going back to the plus side, Jaylen has shown that he can add stuff and grow as a player, even in limited time to kind of develop there. He can still use his right hand. He can still run. It's a wrist injury. So whenever he recovers and they can just keep it in a brace and stabilize that, he can still run. So he can keep his cardio up. He can do all kinds of other things. But he can't lift weights, obviously. That's going to hurt. He's not going to be able to work on both hand dribbling stuff, because you're not going to be able to involve the wrist in anything. So he's just going to be on the dominant hand. You really want to work on the offhand when you're developing stuff. But on the plus side, he can shoot. And he's just going to be able to just prop that ball up and get there and shoot. Get to the free throw line, work on that form, keep that form tight. That's fine. Maybe there's a silver lining here. Whenever a part of your body is disabled, you can use a different part of your body, and maybe you get creative with some of the things that you get to practice. Get out on the floor. Try some hook shots. Why not? Work on that hook shot. Maybe you become, Maybe you do what Tommy Heinsohn did. And Tommy Heinsohn was known for a hook shot way, way back in the late 50s. And maybe you add that to your game. That would be awesome. But you could do that if you want to look on the bright side of things. It's possible that you just add something just using your right hand and you figure something else out and you make something of this injury.